Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us for the Elevating Voices in Leadership podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Gabriela Miramontes, and with me today are my co-hosts. I have Dr. Sonia Sharififard, Dr. Maria Brame, and Reverend Charlotta Green joining us. Our guest today is Dr. Sundra Ryce Hardy. Dr. Sundra Ryce Hardy is the founder of Ryce Development, LLC. She is a motivational speaker, organizational leadership advisor, and thought leader. Dr. Sundra has more than 25 years of professional speaking, leadership, and entrepreneurial experience. During her career, she has successfully overseen and completed more than 500 million in construction and development projects across the U.S. Dr. Sundra has received numerous awards and recognitions globally. She provides vision, strategy, and corporate leadership to organizations and executive leaders worldwide. Welcome today. It's so good to have you. And thank you for joining us and for agreeing to be part of our podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So as you know, or as some of you might know, we do quite a few certificates here at GSCP. And Dr. Sundra has partnered with us. And so she is here to discuss a little bit about what she does and what her vision is for the certificate. So Dr. Sundra, I'll let you go ahead and actually share a little bit about what your vision is for the certificate that we're talking about today.
Yes, I'm so excited and honored to partner with Pepperdine for this amazing leadership certificate program. The actual program is a certificate in leadership, innovation, and executive well-being. And we are so excited about that because I'm telling you, the times are changing. They're still changing. We're dealing with navigating problems, challenges. We're navigating issues. We're navigating corporate issues. We're navigating family issues. We are dealing with so much disruption as leaders. And this program is really designed to support leaders. It's really to I think, undergird the fact that leaders matter and that leaders are important in this day and time. And we know that healthy leaders are important for healthy organizations. So this amazing program, it's a 2-day program coming up in April, and it's going to be at Pepperdine University, West LA campus. And it really deals with self-care for leaders, really helping leaders function in an extraordinary way and helping leaders navigate, really equipping them to navigate this new era of transformation and innovation and disruption. So the program is going to be in April 21st and 22nd. And we are excited. This is something that is new. I've been talking to colleagues all over the country and just talking about this program. And they're so excited because they're like, we haven't heard anything like this. We haven't heard of a lot of programs that are really dealing with leadership well-being and really being a stand for leaders, as we continue to navigate all these things that are happening, all this change that is happening. So we're excited, Dr. Gabriela.
Wow, thank you. So, when you were introducing it, one of the things that really caught my attention right off the bat is this idea of executive well-being. You hear so much in the research and statistics about the level of stress that exists, the higher up in the organization, how solitary it can be for C-suite personnel once they start moving into those roles. Can you talk a little bit more about that, what you mean by executive well-being, what that entails, what that consists of?
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's important to explain first. So self-care is really the idea of, constantly improving well-being, constantly, putting your mask on first. I fly a lot all over the country, really all over the world. And, the one thing they say when you're on a plane is, if something happens, put your mask on first, before you help other people, put your mask on first. And we know as leaders, that's what we do. We help so many other people in our communities and in our world, and whatever we are called to do in our organizations. We help people. We're leading. We're constantly moving others. We're constantly shifting responsibility. And, the idea of putting your mask on first and de-stressing and making sure you take care of your personal wellness and your professional wellness as you're leading is so critical. One of the things I found in my research when I did my doctoral dissertation is self-care is really a business decision. It is a decision that helps us all maximize results, whether it's organizational results, personal results, etc. And it is that, again, that constant awareness of shifting and making sure our well-being is number one. And the premise of our work here is who takes care of the leader that takes care of everybody else. You know, we're always taking care of everybody else, our communities, our businesses, our families, but we want to make sure that the leader is healthy first so that the organization can stand on that great foundation of healthy leadership.
Wow, thank you. So you mentioned that the training is 2 days. Walk us through what those 2 days look like.
Yes, so one of the big takeaways from this program that I'm so excited about with leaders is they're going to come away with a blueprint, a leadership success plan. They're going to come away over the 2 days. We're going to be working, really taking the time, because it's going to be at Pepperdine in a retreat-like setting, you know, a time for leaders to pull away, because that's one thing about it is we don't always have time to come to a safe place to rejuvenate. You know, we're always busy, always working, always making things happen. So over the 2 days, we're going to be really working on and designing a blueprint for success, an executive leadership plan, so that we can all maximize our results personally and professionally. So that's going to go on throughout the program. And we're going to be looking at executive functioning. We're going to be looking at leadership theory. So it's going to be a mix of academia, because you will be getting a leadership certificate from Pepperdine, you know, which is amazing. So we want to make sure we have leadership theory, we have leadership practice, we have the relevant things that are happening in the world right now, and then we have some great well-being retreat-like interims that are going to happen. You know, when we have our breaks, it's not just going to be like breaks, but it's really going to be time to really understand and really take part in executive well-being. So throughout the 2 days, we're going to be having amazing workshops, leadership workshops. It's going to be well-being workshops, and just an amazing time for leaders to retreat, to reflect, to realign, to redesign, and to really get ready for the next level. Because the purpose of this is when the leaders walk away from this, or participants, we want them to be able to level up. That is the time. This is a time of really, it's a lot of activity going on around the world. And we are taking part in that. So we want to make sure that leaders are equipped to level up, to create an uninterrupted path to success for this next level of their well-being and what they're up to in business and in life.
I love this. And it's, you know, I love the quote, self-care is a business decision. That's so cool. I've never heard anything like that before. And I'm curious, what are some of the typical things that leaders fail to do in terms of taking care of themselves?
Yeah, I think one of the main things, Dr. Maria, is sometimes they don't have permission to be selfish enough. And we don't give leaders permission, or sometimes we don't give ourselves, because I'm going to put myself in that box as well. We don't give ourselves permission to really self-care, take care of ourselves so that our organizations are healthy, take care of ourselves so our team can see us be, you know, responsible in that way. It is a business decision. I say it's a business decision because the practice of self-care, when you implement that into your leadership plan, really the results of that for your organization, for yourself individually, is a maximization of results, optimal results. So really it's, you know, I think sometimes we fail to take the time out to do these things because we have so many responsibilities. And again, it's not just business, but it's being human. We have so many human responsibilities. We have so many human traumas that we deal with. Things that happen on a daily basis, things that happen to our spouses, our families. We all just came out of COVID. None of us were exempt from that. I don't know about you, but I know so many people, including myself, who experienced death and trauma in family because of this. And you know, that's one major trauma, and we're coming out of that, we hope. I think. But you know, that's the one thing, just taking that time to pull back and have that time to retreat, to step back and to realign, to redesign, especially after dealing with trauma and burnout. So Dr. Maria, in one of my studies, my major study in my dissertation, I dealt with burnout with leaders. with leadership. And it was just such a remarkable study because it showed that a big part of the findings were that younger leaders were burning out faster than older leaders. I think as you get older, hopefully you gain more wisdom and knowledge, and you're doing things differently. But we need to support our emerging leaders. This program is going to be amazing for emerging leaders, not just those who are going into the C-suite. I had one leader that I was talking to that is coming to the program, and she in her company, she's one of the top salespeople in her company worldwide. And she is coming in because she is interested in that C-suite level. So when my first thought is, wow, I'm glad you're coming, but I'm also glad that we can help support you as you continue to design a life, as you are continuing to impact business, you're continuing to impact global success in this world. So that's the thing, I think, taking time, having time to rejuvenate, pull back, and redesign, realign yourself for success, especially after we've experienced any type of traumas. And organizational traumas happen all the time too, because of life cycles in business, life cycles in academia, life cycles in our own life cycles and in our families.
Thank you so much. That's just so fascinating. And thinking a little bit further, do you see a lot of distinctions in terms of the need for this among men or women? Does it vary?
We did a demographic study, and I think you see it in both. So I want to acknowledge that, because I think this is a great question, Dr. Maria, because this is not just a program for women, it's a program for men. And as I said, we all came out of COVID as leaders. We all came out of COVID as, as human beings, and that's male and female leadership. Women, I think women leadership is on the rise. So, we're paying close attention to what's happening with women in leadership and well-being, but it's also very important for men as well, for male leaders. So I think equally as important for male and female alike, because everybody needs a chance. And I think on the other hand, especially men, to say, let me stop and let me take time to make sure that I am a healthy leader, so that, I can be responsible of my organization and with my teams.
So Dr. Ryce, what would the successful candidate in this program need to come prepared with as they are navigating this program to the success?
I think one of the things, I love working with leaders who are game changers, who are making things happen in the world. And I think when you bring that energy to the program, I think you bring yourself and you bring that energy of, I'm ready to level up. I'm ready to go to the next level. I'm ready to make things happen. I'm ready to design the next level of success and to help others. Because generally the people that are going to come here, the participants, they're up to some big things. They're up to some extraordinary things. Even if they're not doing them now, they're planning to do them. And I think that's going to be the great benefit of the program, is we're going to help them navigate through the system of building that and getting to that and making sure that they actualize and realize those dreams, those goals, those vision, that mission that they're on. Because I believe that, most of us are called to great missions and the Great Commission. So I think this program is going to support them in that way. And it's going to be a great takeaway when they come with that, like I said, that blueprint, that leadership plan that they have to say, here are the strategies, here's what we lead with, here's what I need to do next, here's what's going to happen in the next 30 days, here's what's going to happen in the next 12 months, and we're going to make it happen, and we're going to support you through it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry. So it sounds like your work is really personalized to individuals. Is that right?
It is. It's both individuals, and it's on an individual level first, Dr. Maria, and then it expands to organizational. Because again, we believe that the leadership success starts with the leader. Organizations really, when you look at studying organizations, they can really go no further than the consciousness of their leaders or their senior leadership team. That's going to be it. So we want to create something that continues to expand leaders, because sometimes, again, when you deal with trauma, when you deal with things like COVID-19 and death and different things in your organization and changes in teams and everybody working from home, and, when are we coming back to the office, and how are we, leading in this new era of disruption? How are we innovating? How are we leading innovation? How are we changing? How are we even giving ourselves the energy that we need to push forward and make things happen? How are we eliminating passivity and eliminating procrastination and eliminating all those things that stop us as leaders and being great in our mission? And so I think it's really important to really look at those things and understand what is happening as we are making sure that we are healthy leaders and that our well-being is number one for innovation.
Dr. Rice, as I listen to you speak, it speaks volumes to me as someone who's in the helping profession and works with people who are in constant transition of life and death situations as clergy. And I'm wondering how that translates for people in the helping profession. I heard you talk about C-suite, but the people that are on the front line the most are not the ones that are climbing corporate ladders, but they're leaders that we desperately need to be healthy.
Absolutely. And I think, in a lot of my research, I found that, and that's why I wanted to add this to academia, because there was a lot of research on, psychologists and different leaders in terms of well-being and health. But there was something missing, because I actually looked at the population of clergy and people who help. I looked at that population. I didn't include that in my study. I included small business owners and entrepreneurs who had businesses under like 35 million. But one of the things I wanted to add, and I wanted to expand in the academic literature, is the fact that their leaders are not just C-suite leaders. So this program is not just for, if you're going to the executive suite or you're a CEO or COO, it is really for any leader. So let's define leaders. That leader is anybody who stands on the front line and helps, who changes the community, who is out to make a difference in the world, and whatever their calling is. So yes, I agree with you. There are so many, there's such a need, and I think it's an answer. This program is an answer to leaders and participants. So let's just say people who are really looking to maintain that healthy lifestyle and want that well-being and want to innovate in that area, because, again, they're not climbing the corporate ladder, but their ladder is very, very important in life. Our leaders are so when we again define leaders, I think leaders are just the important people who are doing important work. So we can define leadership. This is not just, again, for, entrepreneurs. This is for, I was actually talking to a friend of mine in LA, and she works in the UCLA medical field. And she basically said, I'm going to distribute this to my entire network. Do you mind if I do that with doctors? I said, oh my gosh. I said, we definitely want a group of doctors there because you are on the front lines. We believe that this is a support program. How can we help take care of the leader that takes care of everybody else? That's that premise. Yeah.
Thank you for that, because that has been a lot of my work prior to coming into the PhD program, is working with clergy who are dealing with burnout and them not getting the support that they need, but the stigma around self-care.
Yeah.
In places where you're like, well, why wouldn't you take care of yourself? Why do you need to be in crazy land, burnout land, and tired all the time in order to look successful? Who told you that? Right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I really did a lot of research around clergy, because I'm also a clergy as well. I'm in that. My husband is clergy. My husband is a pastor, and I deal with, faith-based organizations as well as, professional organizations. So I deal in both of those realms. And one of the things I found, and what really struck me, is that there was a few years back when I was looking at this, there were so many clergy that were committing suicide, that were ending it all. And you would never think that clergy would be the ones with the highest suicide rates, in like 2018, 2019, 2017. And so I know your work is so important with clergy, because I told you I wanted to put that in my population, but somebody told me, I won't say, a little birdie at Pepperdine said, the best dissertation is a done dissertation. You save the world later. So here I am with this program, really working on my mission, that I believe God has given me to really be a stand for leaders, because we really believe that leaders matter.
Thank you. And I agree with you. And I will share in my circles about this program because it is worthy work, but it's important work for our time.
Yeah. I love the way you said that. It's important work for our time. And I'm just so humbled that we are here together. And again, honored that Pepperdine would trust me to work with them with this amazing program.
I have another question that maybe shifts the conversation a little bit, but how do we begin thinking about this for a younger generation so that we're not at the place that we're in right now with a younger generation of leaders that are hitting this burnout mode and having to do this kind of like life support emergency work for them? How do we begin having that conversation with emerging leaders? I say at the high school level, right? Because whatever you get anchored in there goes with you to college and follows you the rest of your career. So how do we begin having this conversation about being holistic in how you approach your leadership and how you take care of yourself as you lead?
Yes, and I love that question, and I agree with you. I believe it happens at a young level. We start getting dreams and entrepreneurial dreams and, kind of our path very young in life. I tell that to people all the time when I teach around the world. You start seeing your path when you're 5 and 6 and 7 years old. So really having the conversation in high schools and in undergraduate colleges, I think is so important. And I think that is a missing piece in academia. And I think that's where I'm glad we're doing this program, because that's where we're all adding. And when we come together as collective voices, Mrs. Green, you give me an idea of, I may get with you after this. Let's start something in the high school. Let's start this conversation, because it is a worthy conversation. And my study actually showed that young leaders are burning out faster again than more mature leaders. And so what does that do? That gives us the space to create recommendations and programs and start these conversations at a younger age and younger times. And I believe, especially with the door open with COVID, that door is open, in academia for us to step in it. And this is a time, because it's so relevant now for all of us on so many different levels.
That gives me so many ideas. Thank you so much, Charlotta, for bringing that up, because I'm thinking suddenly not just schools and kids, but also teachers, training teachers to inspire their kids this way, and parents, how to parent a leader. It's fascinating. Do you find, you mentioned that you travel the world. Are you doing work then internationally, or is it mostly domestic at this point?
Well, both. I think with COVID, right before COVID, it was really, really happening. And now it's starting to let up again internationally. So I would say probably the last year it's been more domestic, but right before COVID, it was international. I think I did like 7 or 9 international trips in 1 year. I did Indonesia twice. I went to Bali. I did Kenya, Africa. I did also another spot in Africa. I did, what was the spot? South Africa, Johannesburg. I take that back. Actually, I've been to Johannesburg twice, South Africa twice in the last 12 months. So that has opened up as well. And, but I just see that, as I expand my leadership and I teach on leadership, and, because usually I'm coming in teaching on, being brought in to teach on leadership and innovation and motivation and motivating other leaders and business owners and entrepreneurs and, people who are doing amazing things in the world. So that is really opening up again, Dr. Maria. And I'm so excited about that, because I'm, I love to speak. I love to inspire people. I love to just empower people who are up to big things. And I think that we need more of that. I think I want to empower other leaders to do more of that, so that we can really do more worthy work, as Mrs. Green said.
Beautiful. So it sounds like your work is, how should I say this, that it translates into many different kinds of cultures. Is that right?
Absolutely, it does, and it's amazing. And the bottom line is, we want healthy people, healthy leaders, and people in all cultures are up to amazing things. So but we have no, discrimination in that respect. And so, I love to travel the world. I love to really mix with different cultures. It's such an amazing learning experience for me as a leader, as I'm teaching in other cultures and, other languages. Sometimes, with a translator, and it's interesting, everything is not always translated the same, but what is translated is that, people want leaders want to matter. They want to matter. They want someone to recognize them, and we should recognize them. And that's what I see, really all over the country and all over the world.
When you're traveling around the world, do you see the burnout in the same way that you see it here in our culture? What are those cultural differences around burnout?
That's a great question. I think I've seen some similarities in the cultures. I would say in the U.S. probably not as it's not the same extent, but there are major similarities in the fact that, when I'm talking to people and interviewing people and doing interviews and things like that, people are always talking about the, their issues, their challenges, their big picture issues, what's going on in the world, what's going on in their lives, because that's one thing that, doesn't distinguish us. We all have families, no matter where you are. You all have some type of profession or something that you're doing. We all have goals and a mission. I don't know a person without one. So we all have those common similarities. And so I see that that similarity. But I think when I look at the US, I actually see more burnout, because I see people, climbing the corporate ladder, and I see people just, totally, not taking care of themselves and taking care of everybody else, like I said, and not even giving themselves the permission to be selfish sometimes, to say, let me take care of me. Let me make sure that my needs are met, my basic needs are met, so that, and I can de-stress, so that I can really bring, to the table an amazing person when I come to do my job, my leadership, whatever I'm called to do in the organization or even individually. So this is even personally, like somebody said that it's really it's a personal thing. I mean, you can really take this on and come to this program and really gain personal advancement, as well as professional. It doesn't matter your age or your stage. It just really matters what that worthy cause is, what you're up to. And it matters that you give yourself that, yes, that thumbs up to say, yeah, I'm going to take care. I'm going to do something for myself. I'm going to invest in myself. It is an investment, but it's such a worthy investment, and it yields, and it's going to yield such a great, amazing gift to yourself and to so many others.
Do you see your work helping people to even develop their businesses and their corporations in more healthy and holistic ways as far as leadership is concerned? If a leader is healthy, then the way in which they structure what they do and how they engage with other folks, but even the very tenets of the work that they do shift. And so do you see that being part of the work that you're doing as you're called to care for, engage with, support leaders, that you're hoping that there'll be a cultural shift even in how businesses and people then begin to operate beyond just the individual leader?
Yes, you know that is the ultimate goal. That is the ultimate goal, to see that shift culturally among leaders, first individually, and then, as it happens with their teams and with their families. And I think that's what we're stirring up here. We're stirring that pot today, and at this program, where, you have that takeaway of, making sure that you are taken care of, but then it shifts to everyone else being taken care of, and then everybody else following suit, because what do we know a leader is? A leader is a leader. So people are going to come behind the leader and do what the leader does. So if you take that as an example, when you look at your teams now, what are your teams doing? Let's talk about that. Those of you who are listening, what are your teams doing? If you are not taking care of yourself, that means your teams are not taking care of themselves. So imagine a world in the organization, in business, in wherever you are, wherever you land, where everybody is taking care of themselves. What does that look like? That looks like a holistic shift. And so, yeah, that's what we're up to. And I love the fact that you brought that up, because that is one of the main things that we want to see with Pepperdine and our partnership. That's what we want to see leaders take. We want to see a shift. We want to see a movement happening from this.
I love hearing this, and I just have to mention how well aligned this is with a book I just finished. Yeah, and the Reverend Green is laughing because I keep bringing up this book because we both were talking about it a couple of weeks back. But yeah, it's by Tricia Hersey, and it's called Rest is Resistance. And it's a fascinating book, and she's basically saying that she would like to see a well-rested world, and how that will transform what we have as grind culture, where we're all exhausted and so on. And there's a whole rich background to her story. But it's I was really taken with her book, and it's beautiful to hear how your work is so aligned with that.
Yeah, and you'll love this, Dr. Maria and Reverend Green. There is a part of our program at Pepperdine that we deal with the power of rest. We deal with that. We deal with the power of rest. And she knows that's in Hebrews 4. The power of rest, really standing on that place and rest. And I love that. I'm going to, of course, check that book out, because I love the thought of a well-rested world. How does that shift everything? A well-rested world. So that is one of the tenets of the program. We will be dealing with the power of rest and what that looks like, what that means, how that transforms us, even rest in the form of a different realms or different layers, but even just sleep, even fundamentally sleeping. Sleeping gives you a whole different perspective. Some people don't sleep. Some of us on this call don't sleep. We won't mention it. We don't even sleep enough, but that power of rest, Dr. Maria, is so important. So we have incorporated that into our curriculum for the Leadership, Innovation, and Wellness program. And we're so excited to even present the power of rest. Also, you'll love this. We're also going to be dealing with the power of play, because play is so important as well. And it's not something that we deal with enough in leadership. We don't play enough. So this is going to be a fun weekend. I don't want anybody to miss this on April 21st and 22nd at Pepperdine. We are going to have fun. We're going to be in a state of well-being, the power of rest, the power of play, and being powerful leaders in the world.
Yes. To pick up on Dr. Maria's talking about this book, the same author has a website that's dedicated to naps. So she has a nap ministry and the importance of taking naps. And so that's another thing to kind of look at. But this also brought up for me, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with Walter Brueggemann's work, Sabbath as Resistance, because what happened is we stopped taking Sabbath rest. We revved up and started doing 24-hour-a-day everything in the name of capitalism and making money and making things available and all those kinds of things. But there was once a rhythm that honored a Sabbath day, whatever that looks like, where everything came to a screeching halt. And you didn't go without what you needed. And so I'm wondering, as you're thinking about these rhythms, how you then invite people to think about their own Sabbath practice, not necessarily around their religious belief, but a Sabbath practice of really taking that time to renew and restore in a way that allows them to have ritual with it.
Absolutely, and that's a part of that blueprint plan that we're going to be working on with the participants over the 2 days, where we really have that personal part of the leadership care. You named it, leadership care. We have that personal part where we're dealing with, what is happening with the leader and really looking at those self-care practices and what we need to do and how we need to implement them. So we'll be talking about that, discussing those things. And I think I love that when we deal with them in terms of rhythms. What is the rhythm of what rhythm are we going to create from here? Because we have a powerful opening, on that weekend to really create some new rhythms in our lives, to really create when I think I'm a builder by profession. So I use a lot of terminology on that, but what are we creating as we're creating these new skyscrapers, or we're redesigning our success? What does that look like? What is that new rhythm that we're creating? So yeah, that's going to be a really important part of that work on the weekend. And even as our lives as leaders every day, implementing the power of Sabbath.
So, Dr. Sundra, you mentioned something, and I'm probably going to throw us for another left turn. You mentioned the power of play. You mentioned well-being. You mentioned just having fun overall. Have you made any connections in your work around resilience and how that kind of work then helps create resilience in leaders?
Yes, definitely. And I think that is a work that is a continuous, it's a continuous play for leaders. It's being resilient, because generally leaders are resilient. And I did in my work, in my leadership work, in my dissertation and research, and what we do even now is we look at resilience, as I say, as a weapon. In leadership, how do we maintain that? How do we maintain success? How do we maintain our resilience, in the midst of, leading through change and navigating transition and managing transitions? And how do we even look at the good? How do we bring that in? The positive psychology is so important. So everything is really going to be based on positive psychology, Dr. Gabby, and I think that's an important place to land our hats, because there's so many negative things, or so many things that are happening. And it's like leaders need some good news. Participants need some good news. So that weekend is a weekend of good news, where we're going to really be looking at, again, resilience, positive psychology, what happens with the good, and really training in that way, so that we can, design and walk in these greater levels of success and well-being.
You piqued my curiosity. You've mentioned your dissertation research a couple of times already. So now I'm going to put you on the hot spot. So tell us a little bit about your dissertation research, because now I'm curious to see how it ties into all of this.
Absolutely. So when I did my dissertation research, I did a study on burnout. And my whole thing was, again, who takes care of the leader that takes care of everyone else? And through all of my coursework, I actually looked at all of my coursework through that lens of psychological well-being and self-care for leaders. And that is my study. It's self-care for leaders and psychological well-being. It's a study examining burnout. And really to add to academia, to add to the research on what is happening around leadership, business owners, and that, because I have once been the burned out leader, and that's why I got to my dissertation. I have once been that burned out leader. And so I have many stories to tell and to share, and wisdom to share, because again, we don't want the people behind us, as Reverend Green said, those emerging leaders, we don't want them to have to deal with some of the things that we have had to deal with. So a lot of my work deals with managing transitions, burnout, leadership burnout, and really moving to well-being. So it's amazing that you talked about resilience, because I've done a lot of work around resilience and well-being, what it means, psychological, our thinking, putting ourselves in the place of most potential, making sure that we are elevating. That's what we're here for, the Elevating Voices podcast, but making sure we're always elevating in every area. And then as we're elevating our communities and elevating, in our work, that we are, in that space. So yeah, that's my dissertation. It's self-care for leaders and psychological well-being. It was a study on burnout.
So what were some of your key findings?
So one of my key findings that I was telling you about earlier is that, emerging leaders are burning out faster than ever. And that's why I love Reverend, why she brought that up, because, we can put lots of programming around the findings of this particular research, that, emerging leaders need support. Emerging leaders need conversations, quicker, faster than after they decide to go into business. And they may be 30 years old, 40, whatever that age is. But really, before they even get to that point of starting a business or starting in profession, or whatever their calling is, or whatever to really start training them as leaders and as healthy leaders, and training them to be healthy leaders. So wherever they land, they will make an impact in their communities and their organizations and their mission.
That's wonderful. I'm curious, even to this day, there's still a stigma around mental health and seeking out well-being and seeking out that level of support. In the 2-day training, or in any aspect of your current coaching or training endeavors, is there ever an opportunity to kind of dispel any of that, to make people more open to these concepts of mental health and well-being and positive psychology?
Absolutely. And I think that's why we're here. I think that's why we partnered, Dr. Gabby. We came together because we want to dispel that myth. We want to kick it in the, what. We want to make sure that people know that it's okay to be healthy, and it's a choice to be healthy. We talked about, I talked about that. I cited that self-care is a business decision. It's a place where we can maximize our potential. So it should not be a myth anymore. And I think this is what this program opens us up to, the conversations. It opens us up to, really talking about that, really being able to embrace well-being, being able to embrace that in our leadership, being able to take that back to our organizations and our missions and our teams.
Thank you. That's amazing. And it's a conversation we tend to engage in every so often, because it is so important. And we see so many challenges in the business environment, in education. I know that you all were talking a little bit about the faith component, but it's so pervasive across different industries. I'm curious, because this is a Christian university, as you know. Is there any faith-based component to the modules or to your program? And it doesn't have to be, that wasn't a requirement of the partnership, obviously, but I'm just curious if that's something that's embedded somehow in the programming.
Yes, absolutely. I will absolutely say it. Yes, it is embedded in the program. And again, it's not about any specific, religion. It really is about empowerment. And it's from that level of empowerment and positivity, and really, helping leaders level up, move to the next level, be unstoppable, make things happen, to, really, help people or push them into the area of, authority, and making sure that they stand in their authority and in their power and in the leadership in their area, in their lives, personally, professionally, organizationally. So yes, I would say absolutely, it's going to be an empowering, inspiring weekend. And I hope that the leaders and the participants and people are coming for that, because we need to be inspired. We need to be empowered. I need to be empowered. I'm constantly even empowering myself, so this is going to be a space where leaders are empowered and inspired to move and make it happen and change the game.
It sounds amazing. I will say that I'm excited to see what this looks like. I'm excited to see the kind of turnout we get. I think this is necessary and missing. So colleagues, we're down to the last few minutes. Are there any other questions that you all might have for Dr. Sundra before I hand over the floor to her?
Just very grateful for the work that you're doing. It's so rewarding to hear about our alumni doing really impacting individuals on such in such an important way, and it's good for our planet, it's good for everyone, so just thank you for that.
Thank you.
So Dr. Sundra, we have a couple of minutes here. Is there anything you'd like to share that we didn't already cover?
I think we've covered some amazing ground. I'm excited to see the leaders who show up in April 21st and 22nd at Pepperdine West LA campus. I'm excited to see what they are up to in the world and how we're going to work together to change the world. I'm honored that to work with you, Dr. Gabby, and the team and your colleagues today. And I'm honored and I'm very grateful for Dean Majidi. And it's just amazing to be in the space. I think we're going to bring a lot to the world from what we are planning and what we are up to. So I'm excited. I'm grateful. I can't wait to see you all in LA. It's going to be amazing. And I know we have to get the word out because we don't want people to miss this program. And also seating is limited. So we want to make sure that people register, that they get the information. You can go to drsundra.com/Pepperdine. And that's the ways you can get to it, or you can go to Pepperdine's page. I think it's under announcements. Dr. Gabby, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you have to scroll through there and you can see our program. You just look for the program for the certificate in leadership, innovation, and executive well-being. And again, seating is limited. So we want to get you in there so that we can have an amazing weekend and we can make things happen together.
Thank you so much. For those of you, for our listenership, you can also check us out on LinkedIn, either through one of our participants, right? So LinkedIn/Gabby Mira, or at GSEP, Graduate School of Education and Psychology as well, if you want more information. So with that being said, I just want to thank you, Dr. Sundra, for being here, for joining us today. This has been an amazing conversation. We're looking forward to the certificate in April. To the content, more conversations. We'll probably ask you back and kind of have
Yes.
different conversations around these topics, just because we can go so much deeper. But thank you again. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the team, as always, for being gracious and participating. And with
Thank
that, I want to say thank you all to our listeners. If you like what you heard, go ahead and click that subscribe button. And we'll see you all next week. Have a wonderful rest of your week.